So welcome to my talks. It's great to be here at Vox Day Zurich. And who am I? Jarek Ratajski. I am a software developer. I work at a digital asset, like full-time coding, Haskell, Scala, whatever, and some other languages. But that means today I'm going to talk about software methodologies, mostly about agile. And important thing is I don't have any certificate in agile. Means whatever I say is probably completely wrong, because what can a developer know about it? But anyhow, if you want to, I gladly share my thoughts on the topic. Okay, and important. I work at multiple companies and with multiple teams. Actually, as a consultant, that was actually very nice to be able to work with really different customers at the same time with different teams. And those are experiences I gathered. And not actually, even if sometimes I meet people that we work in the same team, their point of view is sometimes quite different on what was wrong, for instance, what was bad. So this is my point of view. And I start this talk with the experiment about monkeys. Because, like every talk needs to contain something, from the science. So was this infamous monkey experiment where scientists gather monkeys in a room, put some bananas on top, just below the ceiling, and put some ladder so that the monkeys could climb up the ladder and fetch banana. There was a trick, however. Whenever a monkey was climbing up, there was a cold shower coming all over the room. And it was made so cold that monkeys didn't like it. So very quickly, monkeys learned that you just don't go for bananas. Because, it's not the one monkey that is climbing is getting wet and cold, all others. So basically, they quickly learned not to do that. And then experiment continued. One day, a scientist took one monkey out of the room, replaced it with another monkey, completely fresh. So this monkey looked around. Well, what monkey do? Sees banana, started to climb the ladder. The point is, even before it reached half of the ladder, other monkeys basically take it out. Because, you don't do that. Yeah, they couldn't explain why, but basically the monkey quickly understood by force that you don't go for bananas. And this experiment, maybe who heard about this? Yeah, this is a famous thing. So you know how it ended. They replaced all the monkeys. And the new monkeys were coming, monkeys that never experienced the cold shower. And they still were learning the hard way, brutal, that you don't climb up the ladder. So, it's a really nice story, but I always expected it's made up. And actually, when I tried to reach for the sources, it seems that actually someone just made it up many years ago. And basically, we know that scientists are sadistic by nature, but not that bad mostly. And actually, this experiment probably hasn't really happened, or was not really particularly looking like that, maybe similar. And even more, some scientists say that monkeys, are not that stupid. They would try from time to time. For instance, if the cold water still works, it's like worth trying. The problem is, all that you can learn from this experiment, the story is that as humans, we are probably not that smart. Okay, so let's start with something we learned, estimates. Who is doing estimations? Yeah, everyone is doing estimations because we must, yeah? So there is this, it's from Commit Strip. I don't even know how it came to my LinkedIn, I think. And yeah, this is some strip, but I don't find anything particularly funny in that. So fun is supposed to be that probably one guy is asking different developers and every one of them is giving him totally different number as if they were random. That's supposed to be funny, probably. The point is it really that funny? But because everyone can refer to his stories where like everyone in a room was estimating something completely different. Or like when estimations appeared to be completely different, like the reality appeared to be completely different from estimations. It happens all the time. But is it really funny? So random estimates. Who finds random estimates funny? No one. There is absolutely no fun. Why? Why? Because we can get to what estimation is. What is an estimation? Okay, so we'll go back to Wikipedia that knows everything. Okay, nowadays that would be ChatGPT, but that was created before. So estimation is a process where, based on some data that is incomplete, uncertain, unstable, we give some value. That should be usable, even though the data is what? It's actually, from a mathematical perspective, it's just random data, because you don't have full data. This data may change. So today, you know, this code was nice where you wanted to write your story, but when you actually start to write, you see, oh, that wasn't nice at all. And okay, so this is something based on random data. And you know, in the mathematics, I actually studied mathematics, we have a name for that. To my surprise, it's actually called estimator. What is estimator? It's a function that's based on random data. If you have a function, so some way of calculating, you know, in that particular case, if you are a developer, an agile developer, you are doing estimation, you are a function, you are estimator. Funny, yeah? You are providing a value based on some random data. Funny point is, if you provide value on random data, it is a random value that you get. That's not funny, that's mathematics. No one should be surprised that the estimations are random. And that's a lesson, yeah? You cannot have, because they are random, why would they be precise? Like, if you throw a dice, do you get precisely 3? 3.5? Actually, never, and you get some random value. That's by design. That's what we actually, initially someone named it, estimation, even probably before IT, long before maybe it was building something. And maybe one day someone knew this is random. Now sometimes some people find it funny that it's random, even though that was a design. But the point is, so can we have better, less random estimations? Who knows how to really precisely say how much the project will take, the task? How? Just do it, yes. That is afterwards, you know. Why? Because you basically reduce randomness. After you do it, you basically see all the context that was missing where you may be starting, where you're starting these tasks. That's the only, and that's even, it's not binary. The more time you spend on estimation, the more you maybe start this task, the more you know about it. Probably less random, it's mathematically with less variance, we would say, less variant result you will provide. So for many people, better. But the point is, it costs time, it costs energy. So the point is, does it make sense in a normal, I don't know, company that everyone does a task after that says estimation? Probably that doesn't sound really clever. You do half of the task and provide estimation. Better, but actually, it's supposed to be that you don't even start the task, you only look at it very quickly and you provide random value. And no one should be really disappointed when in reality you get something completely different. Typically 3 times more, but that's a completely different story. So in practice, however, this is all obvious. When I talk with developers while we drink coffee or something, this is obvious. Yeah, everyone knows that. But even though this happens, people are constantly frustrated that they again estimated something, but now they have problem because they won't deliver. So you predicted, you throw the dice, and you said it will be 4, but it was actually 3. Will you be disappointed? Okay, that's if you play for money, sometimes yes, but mostly it's like, it's nothing wrong with you, it's just randomness. But nevertheless, we keep ourselves set. This is like a real agile developer picture. Okay, but okay, that's the start. Random, this is how it is, it's random. There is no reason to be sad. So, but the point is, this goes even more. Why we even are so obsessed with estimates? How many times you've heard that, for instance, in construction industry, they can predict. They're building a bridge, and they tell, for instance, it will be ready in 2 years, 3 days, and 2 hours. And it is. Okay, I live here long enough in Switzerland to actually see, mostly it actually is like that. But not always, but it happens. So, but you know, why it works for construction, it doesn't work in IT. Well, why doesn't? Who has idea? Yeah, my idea is because it's simpler. Maybe because I wasn't constructing. I think so. Okay, I actually have one experience. I built a house, not my own, with my own hands, but I was project manager. So I was seeing, and you know, it didn't actually well according to the plan for some reason, but it wasn't the worst project I took part. So the point in construction, when people, for instance, are, you know, painting a wall in one room, they can quite well predict how long it takes in another room. So you have a lot of repetitive tasks. And people use the same tools for months, for years. They're learning with those tools. We have quite a different situation because we actually, that's the beauty of our industry, we change the tools. We don't repeat. In this worse, we change the tools. What do I mean by that? Yeah, we basically, every time we create a function, why we create a function in code? Quite often because to reuse it. If we reuse it, we are faster because, you know, copying paste is also relatively quick, but it's not that efficient. So copy paste, great, but we learned, probably many of us, hard way that using a function is beauty. But what happens every time you add a function to your code base? You are changing your tool set. You added something to your tool set, but you know this tool can help you. Sometimes it won't on the long run because maybe it actually has some bugs, etc., etc. And you have to get experience with that. You're calling that are the functions. You have to get experience with that. So every time you actually build, while building the software, we are actually building our tools. That's why we are. This is a beauty, but it makes us way more random. Okay. And basically, it's even worse because people, like business, is expecting that we are extremely elastic. So it means like we are changing our software quite frequently. We started, and even before we release to production, sometimes the software that we are building ends as something completely different that was like it was imagined at the beginning. It happens, and there is nothing wrong with that. This is how we can basically react to business. And who is angry when business changes its mind? Are you angry? So I can tell you a hint. When business changes its minds, it means it does a good work because they learn, they observe the market. Of course, sometimes they make random changes. So I know it. But actually, you should expect them. If you are in a modern industry, you should expect them to observe other companies, your competition, to make change and not wait, and tell you after a year, great, we wanted you to build this software, but it's completely useless because in the middle of the year, our competition built something. Yeah, that's not what you want to do, probably. So you expect your business to make changes and you react to these changes, but it makes everything way more random. Okay. So, you know what? That's the point. We are not that bad after all. Look at this beautiful project. So they announced that something will be ready in 2006. In 2006 they started and announced that it should be ready in 2011. Plenty of time, 5 years. You build library, frameworks and everything. And at the end, in last 2 months, you build actual software. So that's probably how they started. But in 2010, they realized it's not going well. We'll need some more year, a little bit so they postponed a deadline to 2012. And you see, June 2012, and in May 2012, surprise, they realized it won't be ready in 1 month. So they, postponed. And you see how it goes. It really doesn't look like a healthy project, yeah? And I can tell you only that this project actually ended, and it's quite famous. It's a Berlin airport. You know, it's not the first airport built by humans, by Germans. It's not even the first airport in Berlin. And it was quite an interesting story about organization. But okay, I'm not really deep in that, so there were many reasons. But you see, we are not that bad, actually. And then I see this picture. It's really funny. But look at this picture, you know, estimation skills of software. No, that's estimation skills of humans, basically. So it's just that our matter is worse than typical matter of people doing other stuff. Okay, so, but that's not the end. So we learn a little bit of our estimation, how it's hard to do well estimation when it's actually impossible because what is a proper estimation? It's a random value, it's random. But why we even need them? Why do you need estimations? Tell me. For management. Why does management need these estimations? Great answer. Like I was asking myself these questions. Why do you need those estimations? Because I have no idea. So actually, okay, first, sometimes we need estimation. And I was in some projects where actually I had to estimate those projects seriously. Okay, forget about it. Like, when do we need it? So I was in a fixed price project where we had to calculate, and because then we say this number to the customer, and then either customer chooses our company because we gave low enough number, but if we calculated wrong, we are then on a minus at the end, if it takes more. Or maybe we said too much, and then customer will choose our competitor. This can happen. So there are moments where you seriously have to estimate, and it makes sense. Customer wants to know more or less budget, if it really makes sense to start this project. There are such moments, but that's not what we are mostly involved in. We are involved mostly, who is doing that? Planning poker, great game, It's like really, probably we mostly do this. And those numbers, what's their value? Okay, I will show you. There is one great value of this, but later. Question that I always ask myself when my team is arguing, is it 3 or 5 or 8? Does it really matter? For you, the mind experiment. Think last time a story you were estimating. Like story, probably most of you were estimating story. You were estimating something. Recall this story. Now you gave a number. Now think what wrong would happen if it would take 3 times longer to actually do this story. Would a company go bankrupt? Would be the project stop? Raise your hand if you have this kind of situation. Project be stopped. One person. Oh, great. Oh, second. So you say it takes 3 times longer and the project is stopped during the planning poker. Interesting. So you have I don't know how long sprints. 2 weeks. So instead of 2 weeks, maybe because you estimated, it takes 6 weeks, and everything falls apart. Okay, that's a really great risk project, but I would say it doesn't happen that often, because I actually see these stories that take months. Someone estimated seems like few hours of work, and then after 3 months, still it's in progress. Actually, there was really my famous story. Someone estimated 0. It's nothing to be done. And after 3 months, it still was in progress. Actually, I can tell you, and then you will understand more. Nichts zu tun. Some of you will understood that. So that was a project where, there was nothing to be done in this story. 3 months. Actually, in 4th month, it was done. So, and who observed this? 8 people. Like half of hour argue if something takes 1 or 2 days. Great, yeah? And you know that it actually took half of day already to argue about it. Makes perfect sense. It's like, if you actually started doing this story, as someone proposed at the beginning, you would be already half in that story, Maybe, okay, but you'll be really quite far. Maybe it goes in that direction. If you argue long enough, You maybe, while arguing, do this story accidentally. Okay. But the reality is this. Every day, developers are suffering during this meeting because they are asked to, who is suffering during this planning? Oh, great. It's glad to be not alone. So many, many years ago, I was suffering during this meeting, and I thought, there is something wrong with me because I don't care about business value. I care about the next code I'm writing, those stories I'm working right now. But if someone describes me, the problems of validation on a third page in settings in somewhere, it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating if it's 3 or 5. But I thought always it's my problem because I'm very technical oriented. I just don't care about business value, sorry. And then in this particular company, particular team, I had a business trip to a customer site. And back then, it was before pandemic, long before pandemic, we were actually making planning in 2 conference rooms. One was in Poland, one was somewhere in Munich. And we had these smart cameras that were basically focusing on a person talking, 2 tables, and basically business analysts, product owners, all that stuff in Germany, Munich, people in Poland, developers. And I knew that during these plannings, I was suffering, but then I moved to the customer, and I looked at this from a customer perspective. Okay, a customer, mostly, let's say, business analysts. And I looked through this camera, and I saw exactly 5 very suffering developers. Every one of them had laptop and was trying to code something secretly while pretending that he is taking, focusing on what's said about the stories. But, none of them was really mind having on the planning. All of them were in a code because they were solving a real problems, not if something is 3 or 8. And that's how it. And then I realized I'm not alone. And thank you. Now I see I'm not alone even more. Like there are more of you suffering during these meetings. Okay, can we end this suffering? Okay. Because in my mind, why we suffer? Because we know those numbers doesn't matter. That this is basically useless work, mostly. Not always. There are exceptions, but yeah. Though maybe those numbers do not have to be precise. Maybe we don't have to be, it doesn't have to be done that often. But there is one value. I told you that there is one value of that. Who knows what a Scrum Tetris is? What is a Scrum Tetris? Yes, so basically imagine this moment where you are planning the sprint. You're planning sprint, and you see from the velocity that there are 4 story points left. And you have one story that is 5, or 2 stories that are 2 and 2. Even though this 5-point story probably is from architectural point of view and everyone's point of view the most important, you should do it now because the next sprint everyone will use that. You don't do that because it doesn't fit the sprint. It doesn't make a perfect Tetris. You take this 2 with 2 numbers so that you achieve a better velocity. That obviously makes a lot of sense. I see in your eyes that this is obviously perfectly clever, but I've seen this Tetris. The people are doing that, are really calculating and trying to fit everything like best. Using as a base random numbers. It's great. Okay, actual Tetris also has some randomness, so yeah, this makes sense. And then all that to have a good velocity. Because what would happen if our velocity goes down? Who knows what happens? Manager comes and asks, what's wrong with your team? Do you need some help? That's something you perfectly want to hear. Everyone wants help from managers. Do you agree? Yeah, so every team knows in their hearts that they don't really like this help. So they will do whatever, even it makes no sense, to actually achieve better velocity, to not get help. And yeah, we are humans. But it's even more funny. And what is this velocity? Because normal velocity is, for instance, how much distance you cover during some period of time, like kilometers per hour. How many kilometers? Per 1 hour. Physics, yeah. What is velocity in Scrum Sprint? It's very interesting, yeah. Because first, what is a story point? Who knows what a story point is? No one knows. Yeah. Tell me. Oh, it's not absolute, yeah? Yeah, so that's a great definition. I find it completely useless because, sorry, it's not, don't take it personally, but basically I read it many times. But after all, I see whatever you do, story points always mean time. Basically, you can try to justify something else, but it's time. Maybe it's not official time, it's unofficial time, it's some complicated, unclear way time, but it's time. Takes, if it's 1, then, and this is 2, this means probably it takes twice as much time as this 1. Twice as complicated something, mostly like that. I'm not talking about business points, what business value points, whatever, story points. And even I worked in a companies that management decided, oh, we want it to be clear. One story point is 1 day, really. So there are such companies, and I don't consider it totally wrong. I just say, why don't you just use mandates? It's okay, because actually it's better to have official mandates than complex, hidden, indirect mandates. Really, it saves a lot of time. Time is precious. Okay, so it is, I am convinced that whatever you say, actually story points are units of time. Basically, it's a time. So when we look at this, velocity is time, how many story points we do in some time, sprint a time. And when we look at it from a physics perspective, typically in physics, we will basically try to reduce the same, to use the same unit. So, and actually I can tell you, I can save you a lot of time. What is the velocity? It tells you how many minutes is in hour. And the answer to that is, this is complex. So technically, if it was a real world, it would be 60. That's an easy answer. But in Scrum, it's actually 23. Don't ask me why. Scrum is kind of complicated. But yeah, that's what your velocity is. Maybe 25, depends. But it's basically how many minutes is in hour. So, but now the alternatives. So if I say this all makes no sense, what's the alternative? So did you try to actually not do estimates? Who? And was it complete disaster? No. But the problem is that then what in your project keeps people frustrated if you don't have velocity? Because something has to. Okay, I don't know. Probably there is something. And you'll just do less estimates. You don't have to be binary. Just less often. Or just less precise. Or, Tetris is great, but, it's like maybe you can play it, after hours. I don't know. Alternatives, for instance, in my company, we use something like this. 1, 2, 3, or infinity mostly. We actually mostly say it's 5. And it's very simple. It's like story is trivial. I mean, few lines of code. Story is, let's say, boring. It's a little bit to be written, but it's no risk. We know what to do. Or it's 3, it means there is a new library to be used. It's risky. Or it's too big, let's split it. And we don't even try to. Actually, even in this company, I know that people at the end think of time, but we try to not think of time. It doesn't mean, for instance, if you take 2 stories that are ones, it doesn't mean they will more or less be done in the same time. One can be done in an hour, second can be done in a week. Nothing wrong in that. The point is, why we do that? The point is to find out when someone describes the story, we all are on the same page. If, for instance, one says, this is 1, and one says that it's 3, it means probably we didn't understood the story the same. That's the only way, technically, we are using this. Not to play Tetris, not to plan our work, actually. Because how we plan our work, we see what makes sense in next sprint. What, from architectural point of view, customer, let's say, project point of view, makes sense. What is needed, not what fits the Tetris. Okay, and the next point. How many times you heard this? We don't have time for quality. You heard this? Yeah, some people. But I hear it quite often. We are always in hurry. Developers I can tell you now something. This is a lie. And this is a lie that developers say. And this is a lie because we are very great at lying. So imagine that you ask someone and she says, this is for 3 days, but yeah, if you give me 6 days, it will be really done better. So if you are, for instance, let's pretend it's a plumbing work. You are doing bathroom, and comes a plumber and says, oh, I can do it for you in 3 days. But if you don't need water leaks, there will be 6. That's what you expect as a customer. But compare it to answering this way. I can do it. It should be done in 6 days. But if needed, for some reason, and there is a quick and dirty way to do it in 3 days, I will pay the price later. And this is also a good answer. Sometimes you need a quick and dirty. But why do we assume that business asks us first for a quick and dirty? Because if we say them 3, but actually 6, they hear 3. And why we say that? Because we know they hear 3, so that we are excused writing shitty code, because we are in hurry. But actually, a few times I heard it, I spotted it, and I asked business, really the one, like product owner, we really want it done a bad way, quick and dirty? And answer was, no, we actually have running production, 100,000 of customers. We don't really need something unstable on production. Yeah, that happens. Okay, so if you are in a company that has already a production running, I bet your business knows the value of good quality. If you are in a startup doing some proof of concept, whatever, fighting for survival on the market to release something just before Christmas, yeah, then it's a different story. It might make sense to do something quick and dirty then. You have to know this triangle. But there is more. How we organize our work. So I am attacking estimates, this time measuring cycle sprints. How we organize this work in sprints. How much sense it makes. So how ideal sprint looks like. This is from my experience. First day we are basically recovering because we are wasted after the previous one. Then second, third day, we are patching the stuff that we've committed and actually marked as done on demo, but we know it's not really done because, there were like problems. We are patching that. Fourth, fifth day, we start to do actually the stories that were planned, but we see, they are really not well described, even though we just estimated them. But while we try to do them, we realize, they are not really well described. So we ask business, and it takes some time to get answers. The next week starts, and we get what? During the weekend, production dramas. So we are concentrated on that. And then there is like 3 days left when we finally start implementing our stories. But it's a demo coming, and we should show something. Otherwise, the velocity go down, and management will ask if we want to help or not. So, we try to do something fast, and we ask our colleagues, don't be so cruel on, reviews, and forget about tests, nothing. That's who needs testing. We have 100,000 beta testers, so no problem at all. And that repeats. And then told me it goes that it's working differently. Sometimes yes, but I've seen this picture many times. So, and then we see this. Who knows what that is? Perfect burn down chart. What is the perfect burn down? It is I looked at some definitions. So burn down is a tool to visualize where you are in the sprint. What's your progress? Okay? It's very interesting because, we have daily stand-ups. We have small teams. Everyone is confessing every day what's doing. And we have relatively short sprints. So even though I absolutely don't care about business value, even if I think about something else, I hear where we are every day. So basically, I don't need a burn down chart for it. I just know it. Just by listening, because why else would I have this daily? So basically, I know where the purpose of a burn down chart is basically the tool to keep you frustrated. In case, for instance, you don't have estimation or something, then you can use a burn down chart so that it looks wrong. And I can basically tell you, I never seen the burn down chart different. Only worse than that. I would call this is perfect. Because normally this line on top goes actually higher and higher till the end of the sprint. And that's the real. So no worries. If someone tells you, we are doing bad burn down chart. You know what to do with burn down chart? Burn it down. It's like, it's a tool to keep you frustrated. You don't really need that. You have enough frustration probably in your life. You know, you are developers. Okay. Or the other problems. You end the story on Monday, and you wait till Friday to show it, just to hear because there is a demo. Just to hear during the demo that, oh, that's not what we actually wanted. How many times did it happen? It happens. It happens quite often. Maybe it's not completely different, but it's a little bit different. And now what? Now you patch this story next sprint because you shouldn't actually, or you do this story once again. I don't know. Why didn't you show this instantly? Technically, product owners should be there for you. So you can ask them, oh, this is what I want to do, how I understood. Look at this. And why wait for demo? But this is basically distraction. When I am building a house, I have natural milestones like fundaments, walls, I don't know, roof, all that stuff. Not that first 2 weeks, second 2 weeks, you know, and so on. That's not how you organize work, like milestones, etc. So basically, I consider it a big distraction, and what actually ends is that we don't care about business value, great. We care about velocity, perfect charts, etc. Scrum is the goal. And, you know, those things suffer a little bit. Happens. But there are multiple people complaining, you know, as old men are complaining, as me. So the question then comes, so what you are proposing, doing waterfall? So I can tell you a secret. I was actually already doing software with Teams, with not Microsoft Teams, but with a team, like a serious software in 90s. I had no idea back then about any agile. And we didn't do any waterfall as well. Surprised? So actually someone, it was, I would say recently, like, I don't know, 7 years ago, found out, well, how do we actually know about the waterfall? And this seems to be the first paper. The name of this process and the chart is shown, at least chart. Winston Walker Royce. And you know, in the first mention what waterfall is in 1970, it was more or less written below the picture, it doesn't work. So, you know, it's like long before. And in 90s, I can tell you we were talking about spiral models, incremental models. You do a small part, you present it. You know, doesn't it sound similar? I think it's similar. Actually, I was in this company. I can name you after that. The really company still exists. And in this company, we were doing spiral model. And one day we get basically workshop on agile. Okay, that was 2 days. After these 2 days, we just renamed our iterations to sprints. We introduced daily, and our managers changed KPIs to use velocity, and we were agile instantly. You know, that's how it worked. And I think this is a great success of agile. We're basically doing a Scrum, at least, doing the same things as before, but with different names, and it's great. No one has to worry. Okay. Okay. Have you ever heard about extreme programming? Yeah, so I heard about extreme programming. Why it's not popular? Okay, I can tell you few things that are really great come from experience, like I think brought to us by extreme programming community. Tests, continuous integration, user stories. Okay, pair programming is still controversial, not a thing, but it was popularized by them. And still, it was never that popular. It was always a niche. Because you know, you don't have certificates. You don't have this Scrum Master role. Technically, actually, you have something like product. You have actually even the name product owner. It's like just not that, let's say, not that with that much ceremony as in Scrum. You can sell plugins to Jira with extreme programming. I don't remember any extreme programming plugin to Jira. And there is no velocity, so managers don't have KPIs. It's a really big problem. And you know, there is no money in that. So, coming to the end. I was complaining, I was telling you about some experiment you can do to make yourself a little bit less frustrated, or at least you see that we are in a bigger group of people being frustrated by the same thing. So all the methodologies, the spiral model, all of that, this Scrum, Agile, all care about very precious resource, developer time. Yes, we want to, because it's precious, we want to organize it well. Because 1 hour of developer is worth that, and every hour of developer is worth exactly the same, and we can organize it. So for instance, this also means that if a developer during the day in the middle has 2 hours meeting, that's not a problem. Like 25% of his time is wasted on this meeting, but that's only 25% of time. Or the developer is working with some ancient Java, 1.6, and it's a little bit more boilerplate to write, and maybe half of his code is XML. I remember those times. But typing is not that big problem, really. We are doing creative work, so it's maybe only 20% of time to write it. So that's not a problem. Yeah, that would work, and maybe one day would work with robots. When AI robots will do our job, they can basically the time will be perfect probably to measure CPU usage. But we are not robots, we are humans. When I'm forced to work with some ancient technology and I see no reason, I suffer. I am frustrated. I am not 20% slower. I am 1,000 times slower because with every line I suffer. And it's when I'm in the middle of the day spending time on a useless meeting, it doesn't take 25% of the day. It takes 200% of a day because I can't work efficiently this day and maybe another. It happens. And I was in such companies. And maybe on this audience, we have many humans actually that have the same feelings. So it is not time that should be organized. It is not this precious resource. Something that we don't see, energy. That sometimes it's not that easy. Problem is you cannot show energy, developer energy, as a resource. So probably there will never be a framework to organize your energy, but think about it. That so far we are still humans, we have our weaknesses, and we are not perfect agile developers. Robots will probably be. And that's my message to you. Thank you.
This thing. Do you have any question for Jarek? Yeah. One.
I can just talk. I'd like to point out an inconsistency. You said estimates are always random, and then you said very quickly the estimates, the truth tends to be 3 times what we estimated. So you're kind of contradicting yourself.
Okay, no, it's like, yeah, you are right. You're right. This is like, because basically that's what I observe. It's like the truth is typically 3 times longer. There's a reason for that. Okay, that's a good point that I'm contradicting myself in this talk. Yeah. I have no better answer for that. This is quite good observation.
Hey, thank you for the talk. Very interesting. Question for you. Where do you put gold plating into all of this?
Gold plating.
Yes, you know what is gold plating?
Okay, I don't really. Tell me now.
Basically, developers just adding more tests, more features, more
Okay.
code scanning, more this, more that, just to spend more time on a story.
Okay, actually, I didn't have time to put that. I had slides about it. Basically, yes. There is a other part when I was saying this 3 or 6 days. If you give too much time for a developer, yes, there is this risk he will use it. And actually, not those risk. That's perfectly sure. This will be used for what is called gold plating, basically. And they even remember these words from Neil Ford presentation. They will work on framework mostly, not the business, not the test, actually, what you say, framework. Because meta work is way more fun than work. So if you do too much time to developers, they will develop frameworks. Obviously, that's true. That's true. But okay, so you actually that few of the slides I originally wanted to tell about it. So thank you for actually extending my presentation.
It's easy. We make it 3 times longer.
Last question.
One of the points I think, for me, the difference makes sense if you consider that it's trust which is the problem. When you have managers insisting on these huge, complicated, agile methodologies, it's basically telling us developers, we don't really trust you. And when Agile, the original manifesto, was saying, actually, just you've got to trust your teams. Let them do what you want. And I would like to argue that the original Agile manifesto is fantastic because it's making a transfer of trust. It's saying, okay, I'm just going to give you money and I'm trusting that you're going to do the right thing. And if we are left alone to organize ourselves, we tend to do the right thing. We think, okay, our pipeline is taking too long. We're spending too much time in testing. Let's sharpen our tools first, and then we'll do it. We'll be quicker afterwards. For me, the crux is being able, and it's what we need to do as developers is persuade the managers, the people who are trying to control this. This is useless. You're wasting our time. We can produce better results if you just don't control us, don't do this microcontrolling.
Yeah, so thank you. That was a great point. Yeah, about trust. I see the problem, however. Why it doesn't work that well? Because most of us work for a little bit bigger companies. Even if we are small companies, we are doing something for a bigger customers. And you know what is in these big companies? KPIs. Who knows what a KPI is? So basically indicators, some measurement, because those, even if your direct manager trusts you, he has some managers above him and above and above. And they, at the end, someone has a dashboard with numbers and they need numbers. So they ask those below to produce numbers. And somehow this goes up to the end and to developers that have to produce numbers. For instance, velocity, performance indicator, that's great. The problem, we know that it's useless. But someone on top of that has this, green light or red light or yellow light. And that's how it goes. And I don't know if we can change it.
Thank you, Jarek. Yeah. So
Thank you.
let's hope we can change or improve our industry. Thank you, everyone. And please enjoy the conference.
Thank you.